You know, I grew up in Central Texas, born in the late 60s. I was in my teens in the 80s. I graduated from high school at the end of the 80s. And I went off to the Air Force. And I remember a season in our lives where our primary sustenance was based on food stamps and potato soup. And I don't mean like the kind of potato soup that you get when you go to Black Eyed Pea or Olive Garden, or it has all the other floaties in it and the nice little cornstarch substance around it and lots of flavor, and it tastes like a baked potato. I'm talking about boiled water with potatoes chopped up in pieces, salt and pepper, and onion if you're lucky. I remember that. I lived there. We lived on an income that was, by all national standards, poverty level. I get it. And there were some indicators in my life at that time that are national indicators of poverty level now. It's been said that there are three simple cures to poverty. There are three things that you have to do to avoid poverty in your life. Now that sounds like, might be an extreme oversimplification. But here's the reality. Statistics prove it across the board. Poverty has less to do with where you're born, what part of town you're born into, race, religion, faith, anything else. The statistics prove these other three indicators are a better indicator of who's going to live at the poverty level based on income, based on opportunity, than anything else. And here are the three. Get married before you have children. Finish high school before you get married and have children. And get a job. Those three primaries. Now, my parents were married by the time I was born, but they both dropped out of high school when my older sister came along. They were divorced by the time I was 4. My mom was remarried and then widowed, and I was raised as the only son of a single mom. I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just giving you the reality of my own life. And in that season, when my single mom was trying to raise 3 kids, was the lowest income level of our lives. Now, all 3 of my mother's children graduated from high school. My older sister went on to college and has degrees and advanced degrees. I am a perpetual learner. My younger sister went to community college. By the way, today is her birthday. Happy birthday, Angel. The reality that we have seen poverty up close and personal in America is based on those 3 things. Finish high school, get married before you have babies, and get a job. If you can simply do those 3 things, you can avoid the poverty lines. I believe that's reality. It doesn't sound friendly to some, because it sounds like the solution to poverty ought to be a handout, or at least a hand up, at least somebody helping you to get some more income into your house. And while that may be a temporary fix, the solution isn't always someone else's money. The solution is get a job, get married before you have babies so you have a 2-family support system, a 2-parent family support system, and finish high school. When those things are in play, most of this problem is overcome. So I think about the other countries that I've traveled to, whether it's Cuba or Honduras or Brazil or the Congo, and I ask myself the question, is there any chance that poverty around the world faces the same thing? That up against those 3 secret weapons, poverty around the world could be changed. If children were born into a family with 2 parents, if both of those parents had at least a good, solid, basic education, if at least one of those parents had a good, solid job, would we see poverty around the world at the rate that it is right now? But the leading indicator of poverty around the world, in all cultures, among all races, seems to be single-parent families, especially those that are having numerous children out of wedlock without a support system of a family. Because the next thing that tends to follow that is criminal behavior. And it's in a couple of ways. Number one, it's the scrambling and the hustling and the doing anything to get money in your pocket, even if it's wrong, which is a very, very sad case of events, but it happens to a lot of people. The only way they can find to make a buck is to hustle it illegally, to sell drugs, to turn to prostitution, to turn to violent crime, to mug people and hold them up. Again, it's not about geography. It's not about skin color. It's about life circumstances. Many of those people end up in jail as a result of growing up in a family where there wasn't enough and they were doing all they could to provide to support the family. Could it be as simple as finish high school, get married before you have babies, and get a job? Can it really be that simple? Could it be? Scripture says, if a man wants to eat, let him work. That sounds to me like probably you should get a job. Now, a job doesn't have to look the same to everybody. There's criminal, illegal, and nefarious activity, and there's legal, qualifiable, certifiable kind of jobs. The legal would be anything that brings money in that's not stealing it from somebody else. That could be any kind of work, mowing yards, DJing. It doesn't have to look like a 9-to-5. It doesn't have to be a punch the clock kind of job. It just has to be legal, moral, ethical, and benefiting others. And it will bring money in the door. Selling things that are not illegal to sell or to buy. It's a good way to make money. Zig Ziglar started off selling Fuller brushes. Brian Tracy started off selling books from the back of his car. Brian Tracy is a multimillionaire. Zig Ziglar left this earth, leaving a lot of money behind. They started off very humbly, but they had a job and they worked hard at it. Could it really be that simple? That not waiting for someone else to take care of you? I've been hustling with a side hustle or two all of my life. My first job, I was 7. I was 7. And I was mowing the neighbors' yards on either side of me for $7. And yes, I had the advantage that we had a lawnmower that I had to use to mow our own yard every other week. And I had the advantage that without having to pay rent on that lawnmower, I had to pay for my own gas. Yes, at 7 years old. Now, again, I lived in a different time. At 7 years old, I would use a bungee cord and strap the gas can, a big metal square gas can, to the handlebars of my bicycle, and I would ride 2 miles to the gas station, and I would pay out of my own earnings. I would pay to fill that gas can and bring it back and mow yards with it. But I got to keep what I earned in mowing. I would buy toys and ice cream and all kinds of other stuff with it. Is that a work ethic issue? Finish high school, get married before you have babies, get a job. If you start out with a work ethic from the time that you're a child until you're an adult, does that carry through? Do you continue to see that? Does the integrity to finish your high school education and get a job follow through with the integrity to hold off having babies until you're married, until you found the one that you want to spend the rest of your life with? I'm just saying. And yet there are so many things that we export around the world. The social media, the music, the videos, YouTube. One of the greatest exports of the United States, believe it or not, is the information that comes from inside our heads that goes out around the world. And I'm going to tell you right now, until you change the way you think, you won't change your life. If the negativity, if the division, if the hatred, if the comparisons, if that's what we're sending around the world, we're not doing the world a favor. We may be finding a way to make money at that, but we're not doing the world a favor. What the world needs is some good, solid common sense. What the world needs to understand is that poverty can be overcome if you get a good basic education, get married before you have babies, and get a job. I think that's a pretty solid solution. Yeah, it's going to take some education. It's going to take some information. It's going to take changing your mind and the way you think about things. It's going to take putting in a little bit of effort. And it's going to take a different way of understanding relationships. But that can be done. That can be done. As leaders, we need to be about the business of preparing the next generation. As we interact with, and I will be in a high school today talking with high school students, as we interact with them, we need to reinforce, we need to explain, we need to express. The way to overcome poverty is doable, and it's on you. You can keep you out of poverty. May not be anybody else can bail you out of poverty, but you can keep you out of poverty. You can get you out of poverty. Get a basic education. Finish it. Get married before you have babies, and get a job. I've lived it myself as the only son of a single mom. I know what poverty looks like. I've also had financial struggles in my own adult life, where my children and I had to move away from town out into the country and live in somebody else's trailer in the country for 2 years because we were homeless and had no credit and no income to speak of. I know what the cycle looks like. I know how hard it is on a family. But because my wife and I stayed together and we fought together and not against each other, we were able to pull out of that. I believe with the right teaching, with the right training, with the right mindset, with the right ideas, and with those 3 secret weapons, finish your basic education, get married before you have babies, get a job. With those 3 things, we could eradicate poverty around the world. Are you with me? Are you willing to try? What will you do differently today? Who will you encourage today? Be a leader right where you're at and encourage someone to do those 3 things. Get a good basic education, get married before you have babies, get a job. I'm J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.